Hey, Shalom, Israel, Shalom, happy Sabbath. As always, if I can be heard, please put kind in the chat and let me know where you're tuning in from. Hey, Shalom, Shalom, SDG, Shalom, Sister Kana, happy Sabbath. Again, if you're just tuning in, if I can be heard, please put kind in the chat and let me know where you're tuning in from. Hey, Brother Vodka, Shalom, King. Sister Quita, Shalom, Shalom. Okay, Con, Texas in the building. Baytown, Texas. Brother from Jacksonville, Florida. What part of Texas are you from, sister? Okay, originally from Chicago, San Antonio, Texas. Okay, all praises to the Most High. So again, we're gonna give it a few more moments for brothers and sisters to log in, and then we'll get started. Yeah, I'm not sure what the land of enchantment is. I have to be honest with you. Mhm. The land of enchantment, I call it entrapment. That's this whole damn society here in Babylon. One big trap. Baki, do I look and sound robotic? Um, it could be could be me or it could be you. Let me ask everybody else. Do I sound robotic, everybody? Am I going in and out? Or is it just a brother Baka? Let me know. You said I do sound robotic? Okay, Con. Hopefully it'll it'll clear up. If not, I probably have to okay, okay, Con. Hopefully it'll clear up. If not, I probably have to go back out and come in or something. So yeah, I could see on my screen my internet connection is it's not the best right now. Yeah, but Lord willing, like I said, Lord willing, it'll clear up. Give me 1 second, then we'll get started. All right, we're gonna get started, brothers and sisters. So today, we're gonna be dealing with Romans the 14th chapter. Um, you know, we we've dealt with for the most part all of these pagan holidays and um, from what starting with Halloween, Christmas. I mean Halloween, Thanksgiving to Christmas. Now we're at so-called New Year's, and there's a lot of things that are still a little confusing in the scriptures when it comes to certain phrases that Paul has said or spoken, and so we're going to edify today. It's our hope that through the Spirit and power of the Most High, in the name of Christ, that brothers and sisters will understand. So like always, brothers and sisters, I'll tell y'all, make sure you take your notes, um, and make sure you study your notes, because there's no point in you know eating this bread, drinking this cup of milk that you're about to have, and then you don't go back and you don't do the things needful to retain that, right? The milk is for you to grow, but you also have to um, study these things in your own time to get a firm understanding of what you're reading. You know, coming to listening to a lesson, that's sometimes just a one-off. You're going to need to be able to go back and study, the things that you're learning, so that you can continue to grow and get a firm understanding of the thing, right? So I'm going to start at the book of Romans, of course, chapter 14, and verse 1. So let's get that. I'm trying to figure out what my instant ain't lighting over here. But yeah, I'm gonna just go to Romans 14 and 1. I'm gonna start there. It's the book of Romans, chapter 14, verse 1. And it says, "Him that is weak in the faith receive ye, but not to doubtful disputations," right? So what does he mean by doubtful disputations, right? Is the Sabbath a doubtful disputation, meaning something that's insignificant or trivial? Are the Most High's high holy days insignificant and trivial, right? Because right off the bat, we deal with our brothers and sisters in Christianity. They're going to tell you that this is what the scriptures are speaking of, right? Hey, man, that's a doubtful disputation, man. Receive that, brother, man. Forget about the Sabbath. Forget about the high holy days, the feast days, right? It's not about the commandments anymore, right? These are the things they're going to tell you. They're going to say those type of things because, again, most of our people, when they read the scriptures, they read it from a preconceived notion of the Christian church. The Christian church already teaches that the laws are done away with, right? That everything is done away with. You can eat what you want, celebrate what you want. You don't have to be obedient. And so through that preconceived notion, they're looking for things to show their doctrine to be true, rather than letting the Bible be true. They're using misunderstandings of what's being said, and they're not reading things in their context, nor are they seeking out the history of what's going on, right? And so we're going to give understanding on that, right? So Paul says, "Him that is weak in the faith receive ye, but not to doubtful disputations, not unto trivial matters," right? Because even nowadays, right, when brothers and sisters come into the faith, it's a lot of trivial things and a lot of insignificant matters that we bog these brothers and sisters down with when they come into the faith. And it's like, yo, man, slow down. Like, let the brother or sister, get firm upon their feet, man. Don't offend them, right? So watch this. And when we're dealing with the Romans, we have to understand that whether they were the Jews that converted over to Christ, or whether it was our brothers and sisters that were Gentiles that came into the faith, this is all new to them, right? And so watch what Paul says in the book of Romans chapter 1 and 11. Peep what he says, right? Can you get that for me out? Romans 1 and 11.
It's the book of Romans chapter 1, verse 11. "For I long to see you, that I may impart unto you some spiritual gift, to the end ye may be established."
Read that again.
Romans chapter 1, verse 11. "For I long to see you, that I may impart you some spiritual gift, to the end ye may be established."
To the end that ye may be established. Because again, these brothers and sisters were still, they're still, like when a brother or sister comes into the faith, we tell brothers and sisters, hey man, don't be out there, in your comings and your goings, man, trying to debate the scriptures, man. Like, you're still learning. There are going to be some things that you may see or hear from a non-believer that may not sit right with you, and it may sound good just because you don't understand things. There's certain things you understand. So it's like, it's time to grow. It's time to go to 1 Corinthians chapter 3 and verse 1. You know, they need the milk to grow, right? And this is what's going on in Rome. Like they haven't grown to fully grasp everything in the faith yet. They're babes, right? So read what you got out of 1.
1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 1. And I, brethren, could not speak unto you as unto spiritual, but as unto carnal, even as unto babes in Christ.
Hey, you breaking up on me. I don't know. It could be me, but can you read that for me again?
This is 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 1. And I, brethren, could not speak unto you as unto spiritual, but as unto carnal, even as unto babes in Christ.
Right. Babes in Christ, right? And what do babes in Christ need? What do they need? Was that verse 2?
That was verse 1. Verse 2.
Right. Go ahead. Verse 2.
Okay. I have fed you with milk and not with meat, for hitherto ye were not able to bear it.
Right. You can't bear the meat when you're new into the faith, man. You need the milk. Go to Isaiah 28 really quick. The famous scripture that we read in Isaiah 28.
Book of Isaiah chapter 28, verse 9.
Come.
Whom shall he teach knowledge? And whom shall he make to understand doctrine? Them that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breast.
Weaned from the milk and drawn from the breast. Because you need that milk to help you digest the weightier and the deeper esoteric mysteries of the Bible. Why do you think when we get on here and we talk about beasts and mountains and seas and trees and things like that, that we got to break these things down to you and to get you to understand that all these things mean something? The Bible breaks down itself, right? And so it's the same thing with brothers and sisters in Rome. Like, they needed to be fed. That's why Paul says he wants to make them complete, right? He wants to show them something. He wants to teach them. He wants to help them out, right? Let's go back to Romans chapter 14. Start at verse 1 again.
It's the book of Romans, chapter 14, verse 1. Him that is weak in the faith receive ye, but not to doubtful disputations.
Not to trivial and insignificant things, right? And we're going to get that later on. Go ahead.
Verse 2. For one believeth that he may eat all things. Another who is weak eateth herbs.
Right. One believeth that he can eat all things, and another who is weak eateth herbs, right? And so, I saw somebody put this on Facebook a couple of weeks ago. They said Paul called those that don't eat meat or vegetarians, he called them weak, right? He's not calling vegetarians weak, right? Brothers got to get off that, man. He's not saying that. Rightly divide the word. There's a reason he's calling those who only eat vegetables in this context, or only eat there's a reason in this context why he's calling them weak, not in totality. Because listen, there's brothers and sisters that are vegetarians that are vastly, they're strong in health and in the faith, right? And so the word, there's no Greek translation for all things, right? There's no Greek for things. So it simply means all, right? There's one believer that he may eat all, right? And so if Paul was speaking about, mama, just leave him be. Let's go. There's if he was speaking about someone being able to eat anything they wanted to eat, right? See, this is why we always say you have to read, you have to search out the scriptures. And a lot of us don't want to do that. And then we get to certain places in the Bible and we get tripped up. But if we have been searching the scriptures out and just reading, a lot of these things will be cleared up unto us, right? So people read this, right? Verse 2, read verse 2 again for me.
Book of Romans chapter 14 and verse 2. For one believeth that he may eat all things. Another who is weak eateth herbs.
Another who is weak eateth herbs, right? So this all things, right? Again, I'm not bashing them. It's not a bash session, right? It's just we have to all come to a firm understanding of things, right? So our brothers and sisters in the Christian church and some Israelites alike, right? They're going to say, see, there it go. Paul in Romans 14, he's saying you can eat anything. And it only gets worse for them as you keep reading, because they're going to take all these things and just make it seem like Paul is letting them do whatever they want to do, right? So if that was the case, if Paul is telling you that you can eat anything, right, then what would be the purpose of what he said at the Jerusalem Council? Go to the book of Acts chapter 15 and 29 for me. Listen to this. Because again, when you read in Paul's letters, just like when you're in the book of Revelation, and Revelation is breaking down itself, Paul's letters are doing the same thing. He's breaking himself down, giving understanding in all the letters he writes. If you just read them, you understand what he's trying to say. So go ahead, read.
It's the book of Acts chapter 15, verse 29. Ye that abstain from meats offered unto idols, and from blood, and from things strangled, and from fornication.
Start at 28 for me. I'm sorry. Start at verse 28.
Acts 15, verse 28. For it seemed good to the Holy Ghost and to us to lay upon you no greater burden than these necessary things.
Now listen, no greater burden than these necessary things, right? Because Paul understands. Because again, when we're going to deal with these doubtful disputations, right? But it's like Israel, we be doing a lot of crazy things when brothers and sisters coming to the faith, man. And it's like, yo, man, slow down, brother, slow down. This brother, this sister, man, you gotta relax, man. Like, act like righteous and had it all together from day one. None of us were like that. And I know we all passionate about the faith, and we're supposed to be, but again, man, we gotta have some charity here, man. You know what I'm saying? And like, that's what Paul is saying. He's like, yo, he giving them an Israelite starter pack. The things you could do right now, sister, today, do those things. Brother, hey, man, I know you just learned this, but make haste to keep these commandments. There's some things right now today that you can start doing to follow the Lord and be obedient. And as time goes by, we'll deal with those other things, right? So go ahead, read.
The book of Acts chapter 15. I'm going to start back at verse 28. For it seemed good to the Holy Ghost and to us to lay upon you no greater burden than these necessary things.
Mm-hmm.
That ye abstain from meats offered to idols,
mm-hmm.
and from blood, and from things strangled, and from fornication, from which, if ye keep yourselves, ye shall do well. Fare ye well.
Read verse 29 again. My computer kind of jacked up a little bit. I couldn't hear you.
This is Acts 15, verse 29. That ye abstain from meats offered to idols, from blood, and from things strangled, and from fornication, from which if ye keep yourselves, ye shall do well. Fare ye well. Right.
So those things that are easy, that are easy to do, that you can stop doing right now, stop those things, right? And so read verse Romans 14 and 2 again.
Book of Romans chapter 14, verse 2. For one believeth that he may eat all things, another who is weak eateth herb.
Right. So there's something that's going on, right? During in Rome, just like in Galatians, like all these places, you know, where our people that are in the Greco-Roman mind state where they dwell, right? And so the stronger believer who's more mature in the faith, that's all that means. When it's stronger, he's more mature in, he or she is more mature in the faith, right? As opposed to the weaker, as the weaker brother and sister who hasn't matured to those levels yet. The one that's a stronger believer, his liberty that he feels like he can eat whatever meat that's lawful, right? Whether it's been because what is the big thing? Go to 1 Corinthians chapter 8, because we dealing with, again, there's a lot of inexpensive meat that was sold there. It was in these various markets, and the meat that was sold in the markets, brothers and sisters, what was that meat? What was Paul talking about it pertaining to that meat? It was what? It was sacrificed unto idols. Right? So 1 Corinthians chapter 8, start at verse 1.
1 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 1. Now as touching things offered unto idols, we know that we all have knowledge. Knowledge puffeth up, but charity edifieth.
You see it? Knowledge puffeth up, but charity edifieth. See, when you read in Paul, he's touching on the same topics, right? And it's just like when we deal with our teachers, you know, like when I'm speaking to General Hashar or Shar Nathaniel or Bun, like they've been in this thing so long that they're touching on some of the same topics that plague brothers and sisters. They just remember it in a different type of way. But it all comes back to some of the main things that are plaguing us and that are going on. And so that's what Paul is doing. When he's writing these letters to various places, he's touching on a lot of things that are going on in his time, but he's just using different ways to touch on these topics. Pause. Right? So verse 2, read.
And if any man think that he knoweth anything, he knoweth nothing, yet as he ought to know.
Right. And the sister just said, oh, okay, I didn't know that the meats in the stores was meat sacrificed to idols. Listen, there's nothing new under the sun, right? And so just like the meat sold in the shambles back then were sacrificed unto these people's idols, who knows if that's going on today? But Paul makes it clear that, and we all should know this, an idol is nothing, right? Go read verse 4, brother.
Verse 4.
Start at verse 3. I'm sorry. You can start. You can probably left verse 3.
Verse 3. But if any man love the Most High, the same is known of him. As concerning, therefore, the eating of those things that are offered in sacrifice unto idols, we know that an idol is nothing in the world.
You see that?
And that
we know that an idol is nothing in the world. An idol is nothing. Make no difference to me as long as it's lawful, because an idol is nothing. Go ahead, read.
And that there is none other power but one.
Only the Most High, right? The Most High power. Read.
For though there be that are called gods, whether in heaven or on earth, as there be gods of many and lords of many, but to us there is but one God, the Father,
right,
of whom all things, and we in him. And one Lord, Hamashiach Yahweh, by whom are all things, and we by him. Howbeit, there is not in every man that knowledge.
You see that? It's not in every man that knowledge. And that's what we're dealing with when we're dealing with what Paul is talking about in Romans 14. The weaker brother in the faith, it's not that knowledge is not in him. You don't understand that because he's not there yet. Right? Go ahead, read.
For some with conscience of idol, unto this hour eat it as a thing offered unto an idol.
Right. Go ahead.
And their conscience being weak is defiled.
You see that? Their conscience being weak of this idol is defiled. Right? Read.
But meat commendeth us not to, but meat commendeth us not to God, for neither if we eat are we the better, neither if we eat not are we the worse.
You see that? So as long as the meat is lawful, as long as it's lawful, if you eat meat, you're not better than anyone that doesn't eat meat, and vice versa, right? Go ahead, read.
But take heed, lest by any means this liberty of yours become a stumbling block to them that are weak.
You see that? And so that's what we finna get into in Romans 14. Because the chapter started off telling us that that knowledge puffeth up, but charity edifieth. And so what we dealing with in 1 Corinthians 8 and Romans 14, what Paul is trying to get us to understand is that we need to love our brothers and our sisters as we love ourselves. Something that we ain't quite figured out yet, right? But most high willing, we'll all get there, right? So let's go to Romans 14. We're going to come back here. Actually, read verse 9 again before we leave. Read verse 9 one more time.
1 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 9. But take heed, lest by any means this liberty of yours become a stumbling block to them that are weak.
See that? Pay attention to that, right? Let's go back to Romans 14. Start at verse 2 again.
Book of Romans chapter 14 and verse 2. For one believeth that he may eat all things, another who is weak eateth herbs.
So go to 1 Timothy chapter 4 and verse 4, because actually you can start at verse 1, because the person who eats these herbs, right, he's doing it because of lack of knowledge, right? Like it's not in every man to know that, or to have the understanding that an idol is nothing. Some brothers and sisters were weaker in that sense, and that's why they need to be built up, right? And so in the book of 1 Timothy, we're going to read about some of these, some of the things that these brothers and sisters were given into, right? So go ahead, read.
1 Timothy chapter 4, verse 1. Now the Spirit speaketh expressly that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, speaking lies and hypocrisy, having their conscience seared with a hot iron, forbidding to marry, and commanding to abstain from meats.
You see that? Commanding to abstain from meats, right? Because of the conscience of this idol. Go ahead, read.
Which the Most High have created to be received with thanksgiving of them which believe and know the truth.
Right. All these creatures are to be eaten with thanksgiving, right? But watch what it says in the next verse, because again, Christianity is going to tell you that you can eat whatever you want to eat, right? See, as long as you receive it with thanksgiving, you pray over it, blah, 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 it's to be received. But watch what Paul says. Read. Next verse.
4. For every creature of the Most High is good, and nothing to be refused, if it be received with thanksgiving. For it is sanctified by the word of the Most High in prayer.
You see that? It's sanctified by the word of the Most High and prayer, right? So how is it sanctified? Because it's sanctified because the Most High set apart lawful meats and unlawful meats, right? There are certain things when you read the book of Leviticus that you're allowed to eat. There's also certain things that we're not allowed to eat. In Romans 14, Paul isn't telling you that you can eat whatever you want to eat, right? He's simply dealing with all things lawful, all lawful meats versus those that only want to eat herbs or what we call vegetables because their conscience is, you know, they've given into their conscience, right? And so Paul is telling us, he starts off by telling us, receive this brother or sister. Receive them, right? So let's go back to Romans chapter 14. You could start at verse 2.
Romans chapter 14 and verse 2. For one believeth that he may eat all things. Another, who is weak, eateth herbs. Let not him that eateth despise him that eateth not.
Go ahead.
Let not him which eateth not judge him that eateth.
You see that?
So let me read that over.
Go ahead, read that again.
Verse 3. Let not him that eateth despise him that eateth not. And let not him which eateth not judge him that eateth.
See that?
For the Most High have received him.
You see that? So it's like, let's not judge one another over your matters. Disputations, things that don't really matter, right? I know I may have cut out in that a little bit because my Wi-Fi is acting crazy, but again, Paul is saying the same thing. Hey, don't judge each other, man, over these trivial things, right? They're more important things, right? So go ahead, read verse 3 again.
Romans chapter 14, verse 3. Let not him that eateth despise him that eateth not. And let not him which eateth not judge him that eateth. For the Most High have received him.
Go ahead.
Who art thou that judgest another man's servant?
See that? Who are you to judge another man's servant? Go ahead.
To his own master he standeth or falleth. Yea.
Hey, real quick. Yeah, brother, we do. And if you don't, brother, do your thing, own live stream, teach what you believe. And you know, when that day comes, you know, when AOCHouston sets us in order and teaches us all.
It's a lot frozen. Give me 1 second. I'm trying to get the brother to know that he's frozen. Oh, he's gonna come out, come right back in. Hawada Yashral, I'm not sure what you're trying to say. The way you word it, he judged not those who eat, not as weak. I'm not sure if you just came into the live feed and didn't catch it from the beginning. I'm not sure, but the way you wrote that, it's a little bit difficult to understand. Shalak, the brother, he should be back on in a short spell. Oh, it says as weak, he called them weak. So what's your understanding of him calling them weak? You feel like he's calling them, saying that their characters are weak? What exactly are you saying? Because he just gave the explanation. He just told you, from the precepts in 1 Corinthians and also in Timothy, where he spoke of the faith that they may have may be a little bit weaker, because he read that a lot of people that were coming back into the fold, they had been worshiping idols, and a lot of this meat that was in these markets were sacrificed to idol. So when he said they were weak, he was saying their conscience is what was weak, by basically saying, okay, if they sacrifice this lamb in the name of Jupiter, if he sacrificed it in the name of Jupiter, and then those that are coming back into the fold will say, nah, I can't eat that because it was sacrificed to this idol, so this will put me in sin. But what Paul is trying to explain is that if you have a strong conscience, you know that idols are nothing and that we serve the one and only true power. So that idol or that God that they sacrifice that meat to is nothing. That's what he means by having a strong or weak conscience. Doesn't make you a weak person. He's talking about your conscience being weak. So I'm not sure if you had just logged in and you didn't hear the earlier part of the discussion.
Yeah, that's conjecture. You can't prove that none of the apostles ate meat, man. And I'm not going to get into it with you, brother. If you don't believe that, then go set your own live stream up and have at it. I love all my brothers and sisters, but again, if we teaching a lesson, man, there's no point in coming on our live stream. Like the general say, man, some of y'all brothers act like a woman with a new dress, just want to be seen. So we're not going to deal with that. If you don't believe that, brother, don't get in the way of the sheep being edified. Set your own live stream up and go teach that thing, man. And you may get some brothers and sisters who are of that same mind state. But when we hear AOC, we're going with the understanding that the Most High has given us. And that's just it. Ain't no back and forth. It is what it is. And so you're free to listen, but all that sowing seeds of discord and causing confusion, that's not of the Most High.
Yeah, because he was being deceptive, because he said he was just trying to get edified, but in the same breath, you trying to teach your own lesson in the comment section. So you being deceptive, you being a devil right now, brother. So if you just listening, just listen. If you disagree, you disagree. That's fine.
Right. And the brother's trying to say, ain't nothing about being a yes man. The scripture tells us debate thy cause with thy neighbor, him and thee. Right. So if you got a cause to debate, do that at another time. If we teaching the people, why would you come up and try to cause confusion? Because again, brother, if you want to teach that, or if you don't agree with that, simply remove yourself. There's tons of Israelite brothers that I don't agree with, but I'm not stepping to their forums or going to where they are to voice my disagreements. Now, if the opportunity presents itself and I speak to the brother or sister, you know what I'm saying, in our own space, in our own time, like we often do with brothers on the live stream, it's not needful. And so again, pardon me, brothers and sisters, it seems as though my Wi-Fi is going in and out. We're gonna push through that thing. It is what it is. And what we leave off at, Zion?
We had left off at Romans 14:4.
Okay, Khan, go ahead. Read verse 4 again.
I'm gonna start back at 3 so we can just get back into the flow.
Khan.
Romans chapter 14, verse 3. Let him not that eateth despise him that eateth not.
Uh-huh.
And let not him which eateth not judge him that eateth.
Mm-hmm.
For the Most High hath received him. Who art thou that judgest another man's servant?
Perfect. Who art thou that judges another man's servant? Because guess what? The only thing we're going to be judged on is this word, not man's opinions or not man's doubtful disputations of, oh, you should only eat herbs, or no, you can eat meat, don't eat herbs. Meat makes you better. No, herbs make you better. We're not judged on doubtful disputations. We're judged on the word. Let's go to John chapter 12 and verse 48.
John chapter 12. Say verse 48.
Start at verse 48.
Book of John chapter 12, verse 48. Start at 47. And if any man hear my words and believe not, I judge him not. For I came not to judge the world, but to save the world. He that rejecteth me and receive not my words hath one that judges him. The word that I have spoken, the same shall judge him in the last day. For I have not spoken of myself, but the Father which sent me. He gave me a commandment, what I should say and what I should speak. And I know that his commandments is
That's it
life.
on that. That's it on that. That's it on that. So again, who are you to judge your brother over something trivial and meaningless? Doubtful disputations, right? We're going to be judged on the word, man. Oh, our faith and obedience, right? So go ahead, verse 5, 14 and 5.
Romans chapter 14, verse 5. One man esteemeth one day above another. Another esteemeth every day alike. Let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind.
This is now here's the contention. Here's the cause for debate. And see, one man esteemeth one day above another, and another esteemeth every day alike. You got to be fully persuaded. Let me celebrate Christmas, man. Let me celebrate Halloween, man. You know, this I could keep the Sabbath every day. Every day is a Sabbath. You know, that old sausage head, meathead church deacon saying that. Hey, brother, every day is the Lord's Sabbath. Being completely ignorant because you don't want to study the scriptures, man. That's why we got to search the scriptures. Read it again. Go ahead, verse 5. Read it again.
Romans chapter 14, verse 5. One man esteemeth one day above another.
Mm-hmm.
Another esteemeth every day alike. Let every man be fully persuaded in his own mind.
Go ahead.
He that regardeth the day, regardeth it unto the Most High.
Mm-hmm.
And he that regardeth not the day, to the Lord he doth not regard it.
Go ahead.
He that eateth to the Lord, for he giveth the Most High thanks.
Start verse 6 again for me.
Verse 6. He that regardeth the day, regardeth it not. So I'm going to start over. He that regardeth the day, regardeth it unto the Lord. And he that regardeth not the day, to the Lord he doth not regard it.
Stop right there. So, if he's saying that you can keep any day you want, like as a Sabbath, and as long as you regard it to the Most High, keep Christmas, Halloween, as long as you regard it to the Most High. Why is he doing that? Why would Paul be doing that in the middle of a chapter that's speaking about food, meat and herbs, right? Why would he be doing that? So again, because when Paul is speaking in his letters, he defines and he gives understanding of how he feels about things. So let's deal with some of those before we go on, right? Go to Romans 2 and 13.
So Romans chapter 2, verse 13.
Mm-hmm.
For not the hearers of the law are just before the Most High, but the doers of the law shall be justified.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead. Go to Romans 3 and 31.
Romans 3, chapter 31. Do we then make void the law through faith? God forbid. Yea, we establish the law.
Now go to Romans 7:22, because again, I'm just giving you, just laying some foundational scriptures to show you how Paul feels. Because again, some brothers and sisters are going to have you believe that he's telling you you can keep whatever day you want as a Sabbath. You can celebrate whatever you want to celebrate. Be persuaded in your own mind, right? Go ahead.
Romans chapter 7, verse 22. For I delight in the law of God after the inward man.
See that?
Okay.
He delights in the law of the Most High, right? After the inward man, in the spirit, right? Because everything that comes from the Most High is spiritual, right? Go to Acts 24:14.
Go to Acts chapter 24, verse 14. But this I confess unto thee, that I, after the way which they call heresy, so worship. I, the God of my fathers, believing all things which are written in the law and in the prophets.
You see that? So again, Paul, we should already know how he feels about the law and about being obedient, right? As opposed to being justified, right? We should already know those things, right? And so the chapter starts off talking about what? Doubtful disputations, trivial matters. Is the Sabbath something trivial? Sabbath ain't something that's trivial, man. The Lord's Sabbath day, the day in which he's set apart, it's not trivial. The law of the Most High is not a trivial thing. It's not a doubtful disputation, right? His high holy days are not meaningless. And I'm here to tell you that brothers and sisters who treat it as such and say those things, you will have to give an account for all those words that you've spoken against the Lord, man. So let's go back to Romans 14 and read verse 6 again.
This is Romans chapter 14, verse 6. He that regardeth the day regardeth it unto the Lord, and he that regardeth not the day to the Lord, he doth not regard it.
Right. So what day is Paul talking about? Again, you have to understand that a lot of times when Paul is speaking, he's speaking as it is written. He's speaking about what's going on in Judea and all these other places based off of things that have taken place in the past. So what Paul is speaking on when he says, where he says, he that regardeth the day regardeth unto the Lord, and he that regardeth it regardeth not the day to the Lord, he doeth not regard it. He's speaking about fasting. He's speaking about fasting. How do we know this, right? Go to the book of Luke, chapter 18, verse 12. Here's where we got to get some understanding of things that have taken place aforetime, right? And if my screen freezes up, I'll be able to tell based off of my Wi-Fi showing me something on the screen, and I'll try my best to clear it up. And like I said, we're going to push through no matter what. We got all day. It's the Lord's Sabbath day. What else do we have to do outside of study and eat this bread, right?
God. This is Luke chapter 18, verse 12. I fast twice in the week. I give tithes of all that I possess.
He said, I fast twice in a week. Who is that he's talking to, brother? Clear that up for us, if you don't mind. Jump to the couple verses above. So we'll know who this is that the Lord AOCHouston is talking to.
Luke chapter 18, verse 10. 2 men went up into the temple to pray, the one a Pharisee and the other a publican. Verse 11. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself. Most High, I thank thee that I am not as other men are, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even as this publican. I fast twice in a week I give tithes of all that I possess. And the publican, standing far off.
Stop right there. Stop right there. So, again, not all the Pharisees, but a lot of them, right, were extremely self-righteous. And so these are the type of things that are going on in Judea. They're fasting twice a week, right? Now, I want you to go to the book of Zechariah chapter 7 and start at verse 4.
Zechariah chapter 7 and verse 4. Then came the word of the Most High of hosts unto me, saying, Speak unto all the people of the land, and to the priests, saying, When ye fasted and mourned in the 5th and 7th month, even though 70 years, did ye at all fast unto me?
Did you fast to the Most High? Go ahead.
Even to me. And when ye did eat, and when ye did drink, did not ye eat for yourselves and drink for yourselves? Should ye not hear the words which the Lord hath crieth by the former prophets?
Okay, stop right there, because he mentioned fasting in the 5th and the 7th month, right? Why were the Jews doing that? Why were they fasting in the 7th month? Go to 2 Kings chapter 25 and verse 22. Because I'm here to tell you that still goes on today, to this day. What we're about to read about. There's a time for this, right?
It's the book of 2 Kings chapter 5 verse 22. And he said, All is well. My master hath sent me, saying, Behold, even now there be come to me from Mount Ephraim 2 young men of the sons of the prophets.
I'm sorry, not 5. I'm sorry, 2 Kings 25 and 22. Salaki, I sent you to chapter 5. I meant 25. Sorry.
2 Kings chapter 25, verse 22. And as for the people that are remained in the land of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had left, even over them he made Gedaliah, the son of Ahikam, the son of Shaphan, ruler. And when all the captains of the armies, they and their men, heard that the king of Babylon had made Gedaliah governor, there came to Gedaliah to Mizpah even Ishmael, the son of Nethaniah, and Jonathan, the son of Kareah, and Sariah, the son of Tanhumeth, the Netophathite, and Azaniah, the son of Maakathite, they and their men. And Gedaliah sware unto them and to their men, and said unto them, Fear not to be the servants of the Chaldees. Dwell in the land and serve the king of Babylon, and it shall be well with you. But it came to pass in the 7th month that Ishmael, the son of Nethaniah, the son of Elishama, of the seed royal, came, and 10 men with him, and smote Gedaliah, that he died, and the Jews and the Chaldees that were with him at Mizpah. And all the people, both small and great, and the captains of the armies arose and came to Egypt, for they were afraid of the Chaldees. And it came to pass in the 7th.
Stop right there. So when you read Jeremiah 41, it goes a little bit more in depth about what happened, right? But because of that, they fasted in the 7th month. And they were fasting for Gedaliah and the Jews, but they were also fasting so that the Most High would do what? Take them out of captivity, right? They weren't fasting for repentance sake, right? Because our people, we did what we did. The Most High sent us into captivity. They should be repenting. But instead, it was about them, not about the Most High. And so when we get to Paul's time, when you deal with the church in Rome, what do you have? You have the Gentiles that are in the Greco-Roman mind state. And then you have the Jews in the church. And so if you have some of the people in the church fasting, and then you have some of the people in the church that are not fasting, right? Imagine the type of contention that would take place. Because of course, the Jews are gonna be like, yo, why aren't they fasting? Right? So they will become real self-righteous in that. How do we know that? Go to Matthew chapter 6, right? Matthew 6 and verse 16.
This is Matthew chapter 6, verse 16. Moreover, when ye fast, be not as the hypocrites of a sad countenance, for they disfigure their faces, that they may appear unto men to fast. Verily I say unto you, they have their reward. But thou, when thou fastest, anoint thine head and wash thy face, that thou appear not unto men to fast, but unto thy Father which is in secret. And thy Father which seeth in secret shall reward thee openly.
And why do you think he's saying things like that? Because he already explained it. Because again, you have people that want to disfigure their face and they want to make themselves low and not brush their teeth and I'm fasting, man. I'm trying my best to get through this fast, brother. And just, rather than being strong, anointing yourself and getting through the day. It's not supposed to be something that you got to broadcast to everybody. Now, is it okay to tell someone you're fasting? Absolutely. But what he's saying is that it's not because people do it to be self-righteous. So again, imagine Paul seeing these things okay, of course, the Jews, because they have these traditions to where you fast twice in a week. They fast in, a semi-weekly fast. And then you have these brothers and sisters that just came over. So what are they trying to do? They're trying to get them to do that. And it's causing contention. Yo, why ain't you fasting? They should fast too. We fast. Why aren't you fasting? And the thing is there's only one day of the year that we are supposed to fast. And that's the Day of Atonement. So if a brother ain't fasting 3 or 4 times a week like you've turned that into a doubtful disputation. You regarding that day as a day, he regarding it not as a day because he don't have to fast that day. But you trying to lay it on thick. Brothers and sisters coming to the faith, and we decided we're gonna fast this Sabbath, man. You want to join in? Why? That brother or sister don't have to, because it ain't the Day of Atonement. It's just a regular day. But of course, when you acting in a self-righteous manner, you're going to stand up in the synagogue and say, I thank God that I'm not like this person. I thank the Most High that I fast 2 times in a week. So what? He only told you to fast 1 day of the year. So you ain't fasting unto the Most High. You're fasting unto yourself. It is what it is. Now, I'm not saying that there's something wrong with fasting, because even AOCHouston said, this kind goeth out, not out except by fasting and prayer. But when it becomes a self-righteous thing to where you have to lay it on everybody, I'm fasting twice this week. You gonna do it? No, I'm not gonna do it. And you feel a type of way because the brother don't fast. That's a problem. That's a problem. And that's what Paul is trying to get across to them, right? You regarding it as something that he not. Read Romans 14:6 again.
This is Romans chapter 14, verse 6. He that regardeth the day regarded it unto the Lord. And he that regardeth not the day to the Lord, he doth not regard it. He that eateth to the Lord, for he giveth God thanks. And he that eateth not to the Lord, he eateth not, and giveth God thanks.
Right. And so those brothers and sisters, right, that were fasting and were trying to make themselves appear more righteous than the brothers and sisters that are not, right? This division was so great, Paul has to address it because that's what he does. That's why he starts off by saying what? Him that is weak in the faith receive ye, but not to doubtful disputations. For one believeth that he may eat all things, another who is weak eateth herbs. Nothing trivial, brother, because you want to fast today, you want to lay that burden on somebody else, you gonna make them do it, brother. They don't have to. Today ain't the Day of Atonement. But because you doing it and you doing it twice in a week, you trying to make you think you better than him because of that? Or how about this, man? The brother just came into the faith, man. Get a brother some room to grow, brother. You want to have a brother fast 2 or 3 times a week? He just got in. Let him grow. Let him understand. Help him along, brother. And then as he grows, you can explain to him about the benefits of fasting and things like that. But brother, he relax. The only time he has to fast is Day of Atonement, right?
Okay.
Go to Matthew chapter 9 and verse 14.
Matthew chapter 9.
This is how we know things like this were going on, and they still go on, right? Go ahead, read.
It's Matthew chapter 9, verse 14. Then came to him the disciples of John, saying, why do we and the Pharisees fast oft, but thy disciples fast not?
Right. Why we fasting often and your disciples don't? You see that? Didn't mention Day of Atonement. He just said, why do we fast often and your disciples, they don't? Nigga, because they don't have to. Because it's not the Day of Atonement, man. So when you regarded one day as something, and these brothers aren't regarding that day as something, so you have to be fully persuaded in your own mind, right? So let's go back to Romans chapter 14. Right? Romans 14 and 7.
So the book of Romans chapter 14, verse 7. For none of us liveth to himself, and no man dieth to himself. For whether we live unto the Lord, and whether we die unto the Lord. Whether we live, therefore, or die, we are the Lord's. For to this end, AOCHouston both died and rose and revived, that he might be Lord both of the dead and living.
Go to 1 Corinthians chapter 6 and verse 20. We were bought with a price. We're not our own. And Christ died for everybody. The ones that eat meat and the ones that don't eat meat alike. Right?
1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 20. For ye are bought with a price. Therefore, glorify the Most High in your body and in your spirit, which are God's.
You see that? We bought with a price. We're not our own. Go to 2 Corinthians 5 and 15.
2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 15. And that he died for all, that they which live should not henceforth live unto themselves, but unto him which died for them and rose again.
You see that? We Christ's, man. We been bought with a price, man. We're bought with a price.
You take this all the way back to the curses of Deuteronomy 28:64, where it says that no man gonna buy you because we was already purchased.
Let's go back to Romans 14, verse 10.
So Romans chapter 14, verse 10. But why dost thou judge thy brother? Or why dost thou set at naught thy brother? For we shall all stand before the judgment seat of Christ.
Right, because listen, the Most High is the ultimate judge. These doubtful disputations are just what they are. It's up to the individual. It's up to the individual. Yo, brother, if you want to fast 3 times in a week, cool. I don't want to do that. But guess what? It doesn't make you any better that you do and that I don't, brother. Because it's not a day set out for that. That's something between you and the Most High, just like me not fasting is it's between me and the Most High. Right? Go ahead.
Romans chapter 14, verse 11. For it is written, as I live, saith the Lord, every knee shall bow to me, and every tongue shall confess to the Most High. So then every one of us shall give account of himself to God.
We're going to have to give an account of ourselves unto the Most High, right? And it ain't going to be over these trivial things, man. It's going to be over far greater things. These trivial things about eating meat versus eating herbs, and no, man. No. Go ahead, read.
Verse 13. Let us not therefore judge one another anymore, but judge this rather, that no man put a stumbling block or an occasion to fall in his brother's way.
Read that again.
Romans chapter 14, verse 13. Let us not therefore judge one another anymore, but judge this rather, that no man put a stumbling block or an occasion to fall in his brother's way.
Have a care for those weaker in the faith. I'm going to read it again, but I'm going to read it somewhere else. 1 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 9. But take heed, lest by any means this liberty of yours become a stumbling block to them that are weak. So it's saying it again. Have a care for those brothers and sisters that are weaker in the faith, right? So go ahead, next verse.
Verse 14. I know and am persuaded by the Lord Yahushua that there is nothing unclean of itself, but to him that esteemeth anything to be unclean, to him it is unclean.
But verse 14, right?
Verse 14, come.
Read that again for me.
Romans chapter 14, verse 14. I know and am persuaded by the Lord Yahushua that there is nothing unclean of itself, but to him that esteemeth anything to be unclean, to him it is unclean.
Okay, stop right there, right? Because again, we got to understand, and sometimes to understand, you got to go into the language, right?
Okay.
So, Romans 14 and 14, right? So there's 2 types of words here for unclean. Read it again for me.
Romans chapter 14, verse 14. I know and am persuaded by the Lord Yahushua that there is nothing unclean of itself.
Stop right there, right? So this word for unclean is koinos, right? I believe that's how you say it.
39, koinos.
Koinos, right?
Koinos.
Right? So this means it's unholy, it's unclean, it's defiled, it's Levitically unclean, right? And so read 14 again.
Romans 14, verse 14. I know and am persuaded by the Lord Yahushua that there is nothing unclean of itself.
Mm-hmm.
But to him that esteemeth anything to be unclean, to him it is unclean.
So another unclean, let me get the word right, because there's two types of unclean. Spell the word out in here. AKATHARTS. There's another type of unclean. I don't know how to pronounce the word. I'll spell it out in the chat. But it means in a ceremonial sense, right? Like meaning that it's unlawful for us to eat, right? And so the Jews, they would think that a lamb that was touched by a Gentile, right, or sacrificed to an idol would be what? They would think it's unclean, like or ordinary in like a ceremonial sense, not that we couldn't eat it, right? But then there are foods that are unclean in the sense of unlawful, like a pig. And so that's what Paul is speaking about here, right? Common, unclean, they're not all the, these things are not the same. Some can be common, but it doesn't mean that it's unlawful. And so that's the point that he's trying to stress, right? Read it again, verse 14.
Romans chapter 14, verse 14. I know and am persuaded by the Lord Yahushua that there is nothing unclean of itself, but to him that esteemeth anything to be unclean, to him it is unclean.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 15.
Oh, yes, go ahead. Actually, read 14 again. Read verse
Romans chapter 14, verse 14. I know and am persuaded by the Lord Yahushua that there is nothing unclean of itself, but to him that esteem anything to be unclean, to him it is unclean.
Right, because again, this same word, koinos, when you read Acts 10, when you go to the word for common, it's the same word. Right? And what did the Most High say about things that are common? Right? What he cleansed, call it not common. Right? Now, we know that there are things that are unclean. And we know that Paul isn't endorsing to eat anything that is unclean because he hasn't offended in the law. And he doesn't teach to offend in the law. Right? So go ahead, verse 15.
Verse 15. But if thy brother be grieved with thy meat, now walkest thou not charitably. Destroy not him with thy meat, for whom Yahushua died.
Now listen, here's the thing, right? If it's bothering your brother, don't be inconsiderate in that matter. That's loving your brother like you love yourself. Right? Read it again, verse 15.
Verse 15. But if thy brother be grieved with thy meat.
If he's grieved with your meat, because again, we just read about meat sold into shambles, right? I'm gonna read it real quick. 1 Corinthians chapter 8 and verse 13. It says, wherefore, if meat make my brother to offend, I will eat no flesh while the world standeth, lest I make my brother to offend. Now, the hope is that in doing that, what do you do for your brother? As you try your best not to offend or place a stumbling block in front of your brother, you're also helping to build him up in the faith. And in time, he'll come to understand some of these things that you understand through charity, right? So go ahead, verse 15 again.
Romans 14, verse 15. But if thy brother be grieved with thy meat, now walkest thou not charitably. Destroy not him with thy meat, for whom Yahushua died.
Right. Don't insist that he does the same thing as you. Yahushua died for both of y'all. Right. Be considerate of your brother, man. Help him grow. If it's bothering him, all right, I got you, no problem. That's the type of level we have to get to. Don't be knowledgeable of something and let that puff you up. Right? And that's what goes on a lot here in Israel. That knowledge puffs us up to the point to where we offend brothers because they don't know and they don't understand, and we haven't taken the time out to be charitable unto them and to show that love and that charity. Right? So go ahead, read.
Verse 16. Let not then your good be evil spoken of.
Mm-hmm.
For the kingdom of God is not meat and drink, but righteousness and peace and joy in the Holy Spirit.
Fruits of the Spirit. Go ahead.
For he that is in these things serveth Christ, is acceptable to God and approved of men.
Hold up real quick. The brother says, so if he's fasting, try not to eat in front of him. No, not necessarily that. Because it's a couple things that are being talked about, right? The first he's talking about brothers that eat meat versus brothers that don't eat meat, right? And the issue is not that person just chooses a vegetarian lifestyle. The problem is that the reason that brother isn't eating meat is because his faith is weak, because he feels like though that meat was sacrificed unto an idol, pursuant to the book of 1 Corinthians chapter 8. And so because of that, his conscience is weak. And so if he sees you sit down in the shambles on the markets and you eating that food, although it's lawful, because his conscience is defiled and he sees that you, a stronger brother, are eating that food sacrificed to an idol, it could be a stumbling block unto him. So Paul is saying, look, if this meat is going to cause me to offend my brother, then I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to place that stumbling block in front of him. Because we're to receive a brother or sister weaker in the faith, and we have to help to build them up. Right? So go ahead, verse 18.
Romans chapter 14, verse 18. For he that is in these things serveth Christ, is acceptable to the Most High and approved of men.
Right, you displaying those fruits of the Spirit, man. You're approved of the Most High, approved of men, right? You showing forth that charity, because that's one of the fruits of the Spirit. You showing forth that charity unto your brother, bearing with him. Hey, yeah, I understand, man. The brother may not be there yet, man. So we got to bear with the brother, right? Continue to build that brother up, right? So go ahead. Next verse.
Verse 19. Let us therefore follow after the things which make for peace,
and
things wherewith one may edify another. For meat destroy not the work of the Most High. All things indeed are pure, but it is evil for that man who eateth with offense.
You see that? Read that verse again.
Romans 14, verse 20. For meat destroy not the work of the Most High. All things indeed are pure, but it is evil for that man who eateth with offense.
Right. So eating meat or not eating meat is not going to bring down the work of the Most High, right? And so what he's saying is like, it's the way that it's done. So again, I'll give a perfect example, man. It's like this, right? November 24th, right? What is that day?
Is that Thanksgiving, right?
Right, right. And so what meat is eaten on November 24th?
Predominantly turkey.
Predominantly turkey, right? So a brother comes to your house that's new into the faith, and you done told this brother, yeah, man, we don't celebrate no Thanksgiving. We ain't into that, this and that, whoop-de-whoop. Some brothers, use the harvest. I forget who it is, but feast to say that it's pagan and stuff like that. And you done sold this to brothers newer into the faith. Like, yeah, we don't deal with that, brother. It's a slaughter of our brothers and sisters, man. And then they come over to your house, and it just might so happen that you like turkey, and it's a regular day for you, and you might have grilled some turkey legs, or you may have, put some, fried turkey cutlets or something like that. And that brother comes to your house, or that sister comes to your house, and they see you eating that. Their mind automatically goes to an idol or something pagan. And they're like, this brother's sitting here eating turkey on Thanksgiving Day? And so their mind is seared because of that. You've laid a stumbling block in front of them because they don't understand that, brother, I don't celebrate that. I don't keep that day in the back of my mind, brother. I don't have to fast on that day. Because some brothers, I fast on Christmas Day, or I fasted on Thanksgiving. Okay, good for you. But I ate something. And I was off that day. I might have barbecued something. It was all lawful meats, and I don't give a damn about no Saturnalia. No, none of that other stuff. It's a regular day for me, and I like to eat, so I'm going to eat. And so it's not necessarily saying it's better to do it privately, but it's just saying like, yo, again, the knowledge that you have of understanding that an idol is nothing, again, all brothers and sisters aren't built up like that yet. So if you're around brothers and sisters that you feel like that may cause a stumbling block, it's like, yo, you know what? I ain't even going to deal with that right now. So yeah, I would privately, like, yo, out of their presence, you know what I'm saying? So that, until they can be built up to understand that, yo, that ain't nothing. If somebody gave you a plate of Christmas food, what are you going to do? Oh, I'm not eating that. I ain't celebrating no Saturday. Who said you celebrating? But again, knowledge brings you to that. Faith and understanding brings you to that. Some brothers ain't there yet.
God.
If you eating lawful meats, okay, I'm eating lawful food. That ain't nothing.
Nah, because it's just food. It's just food. You not having a strong enough conscience is what make the idol have power that you think that food is worship to. Exactly. It has been sacrificed to.
Exactly. And Paul is going to tell you that as we keep reading. So go ahead, read verse 21.
Romans chapter 14, verse 21. It is good neither to eat flesh, nor to drink wine, nor anything whereby thy brother stumbleth, or is offended, or is made weak.
Go the extra mile not to offend your brother and to help build him up. Again, love your brother like you love yourself. He mentioned wine. If you know that you deal with a brother that's a drunkard, and this brother stay getting drunk, and he's stumbling, and he makes bad decisions and doing all these crazy things when he's giving them to drinking, it may not be a good idea to drink wine in front of that brother or drink strong drink in front of him so that you don't place a stumbling block in front of him. Can you drink strong drink? Absolutely. Is it okay to drink wine? Absolutely. But if it's going to cause you to offend that brother or place a stumbling block in front of him, may not be the best idea. Right? That's not the best idea, man. And so, again, go the extra mile, right? Next verse, verse 22.
Hast thou faith? Have it to thyself before the Most High.
Right. Go ahead.
Happy is he that condemneth not himself in that thing which he alloweth.
Right. Because guess what? You have faith. Good. But again, everybody ain't there yet. Read that verse again.
Romans 14, verse 22. Hast thou faith? Have it to thyself before God. Happy is he that condemneth not himself in that thing which he alloweth.
Right. You ain't condemning yourself by eating those type of foods because you understand that it ain't nothing wrong with it. Cool. But this brother don't get that. Right? So go ahead, next verse.
Romans chapter 14, verse 23. And he that doubteth is damned if he eat, because he eateth not of faith. For whatsoever is not of faith is sin.
You see that? So that brother that eateth not, the one that doubted that he eat because he's thinking this is an idol. Damn, he's giving his conscience over to an idol. And so everything that Paul is saying, he spoke about it in first to the Corinthians as well. 1 Corinthians chapter 8.
All right.
And how do we know that when he says he that regardeth the day, he's not talking about high holy days and things like that? Go to the book of Sirach, chapter 33. Sirach, chapter 33. Start at verse 7.
This is Sirach chapter 33, verse 7. Why doth one day excel another, when as all the light of every day in the year is of the sun?
Why does one day excel another, when as all the light of every day in the year is of the sun? Right? All the days are the same. So why does one day excel another? This is the question to ask your Christian buddies, right? And those that are using Romans 14 as a weapon against obedience, right? Why does one day excel another? Read.
Verse 8. By the knowledge of the Lord they were distinguished, and he altered seasons and feasts. Some of them have he made high days and hallowed them.
Some of them he made high days and hallowed them, made them holy. High, holy days. Read.
And some of them have he made ordinary days.
You see that? He made some of them ordinary days, right? So guess what? The Sabbath isn't a doubtful disputation. How do we know that? Let's go to the book of Genesis, right?
Call it again. I don't want you to kind of lagged a little bit.
Oh, no, I was saying, is the Sabbath doubtful disputation? Absolutely not, right? Because, and I say, go to the book of Genesis, right? Go to Genesis. Genesis chapter 2, verse 3. Walter Spears, who is Bashir? Who is Bashir, brother? Go ahead, Al.
Genesis chapter 2, verse 3. And the Most High blessed the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it he had rested from all his work, which God created and made.
Right. So he blessed and sanctified, meaning he set it apart, right? So if he set that day apart, who are you to then come along in your feeble understanding, in your iniquitous life, to say that the Sabbath is a doubtful disputation. And you could regard it as any day as long as you're fully persuaded in your own mind. The Sabbath ain't a doubtful disputation. The high holy days are not doubtful disputation. They're not trivial matters, right? They're not. Where's that scripture at, man? Let's see, which one am I looking for? It was just in the forefront of my mind. Okay, yeah, sin unto death. Go to the book of 1 John chapter 5, verse 16. Just using this as an example. Elijah ben Judah. Hey, happy Sabbath to you, brother. The brother is around and he's probably watching a live stream just as you're watching a live stream. Do you have any questions you got to ask the men, brother? But you need edification on? Go ahead, I'll read what you got.
This is the book of John, chapter 5, verse 16. And therefore did the Jews persecute Yahushua.
First John chapter 5 and 16.
1 John, okay.
So you haven't seen him in a long time, brother. I don't get it. Like, where do you live? Who you live, brother? To where you feel like you have to see that brother sometime. I mean, you know.
1 John chapter 5, verse 16.
Mm-hmm.
If any man see his brother sin a sin which is not unto death, he shall ask, and he shall give him life for them that sin not unto death.
Okay, stop right there. So that lets you know that there are some things that some sins are weighed higher than others. So let's not act like the Sabbath is not weighed higher than a lot of other things. The Lord set that day apart. And for you to make it seem like it's just something trivial to where you can celebrate and worship the Most High how you want to is crazy. And you're going to pay for that. And the Lord going to judge you for that thing. Because you can't do that. You can't worship the Most High how you want to worship him. And that's the problem with Christianity. They teach you can do that. You cannot worship the Most High how you want to. You have to worship him how he wants to be worshiped. What you think this is? Who you think you are? To say you can worship the Lord how you want to worship him. That ain't how this works. It don't work like that. It don't work like that. Right? And so that's it on that thing, man. You know, hey. Go study these notes, brother. Go study them. And you know, if you have questions after you study them, go ahead and send them to the email address. You said Paul was against the Feast of Dedication. I doubt it, because he wasn't against Christ. And because he wasn't against Christ, why would he be against something that Christ, you know, himself wasn't against? The Feast of Dedication is just that, a feast of dedication. It's you know, just like King Solomon dedicated the temple. He had a feast for it. Just like in the time of Nehemiah and all them, there were dedications to the feast. And brother, you so anxious to be contentious that you don't even see the email addresses right in your face. And it's been that whole telecast. Like, You know, that's the funny thing, man. Like, brothers be so ready to be contentious, man. Like, and here's the crazy thing about that, man. There's so many sheep out here that need to be fed. There's tons of work for everybody. The laborers are few, the harvest is plentiful, right? And so, you know, you got a question, brother, send it to the email address. Let me explain something to you, brother. That's not the only feast that's not in Torah, brother. That's not the only feast that's not in the Torah. Purim is not in Torah, but we honor and we keep Purim. As a high holy day, no, but as a feast and a memorial, absolutely. Was King Solomon off when he dedicated the temple the first time? Absolutely not. And so we have to understand, go back to the book of Sirach, chapter 33, right? Go back to Sirach, chapter 33, right? In verse 7 again. And when you look at all of our memorials and our feast days and things like that, even our high holy days, what is the main theme of a lot of them? It's us being delivered. It's us being delivered from destruction. So when you look at Purim is a feast dedicated to us being delivered from destruction, just like Feast of Dedication is, right? Now we know that the Feast of Dedication goes back to the original dedication of the temple, but again, we were delivered from being destroyed. And what comes all around the same time? You have the Feast of Dedication in the 9th month, and then when you get to the 12th month, what do you have? You have Purim, and then you have Judah Maccabeus' day, which is the destruction of Nicanor, which we keep these things and celebrate these things as memorials for us being delivered from destruction. And then when you get to the 2nd month, what do you have? Not a high holy day, but you have a feast day, a memorial for what? To show us that, again, we had a valiant leader that helped push the fight going and that delivered us from destruction. Just like what did AOCHouston say in Matthew 26? He said, as a memorial for what this sister did, when this gospel goes forth, speak about it. A memorial. Go ahead, brother, read.
Sirach chapter 33, verse 7. Why doth one day excel another, when as all the light of every day in the year is of the sun?
Mm-hmm.
Verse 8. By the knowledge of the Lord, they were distinguished, altered seasons and feasts. Some of them have he made high days and hallowed them. And some of them have he made ordinary days.
Right, because when you deal with Leviticus 23, right, we were a very, very young nation at the time. But through the process of time, there are things that have happened in our history that have been memorialized. And when you deal with the Levites, especially, they're set apart for that type of work. And so when the Maccabees ordained that thing, they ordained it. And then we have AOCHouston later on, you know, we see that he honored it.
You got to keep in mind also that Leviticus 23, we was just coming out of captivity in Egypt. So therefore, we hadn't entered into the land. And if we had entered into the land and kept the commandment as we vowed to do, we wouldn't have these other holy days because we wouldn't have went back into other captivities.
Okay.
So once we went into those other captivities and the Most High had to bring us out again, the same way he memorialized the Exodus to celebrate him, these other feast days that we were given victories against these other nations, they were not high holy days, but these are feast days that we should commemorate the victory of our power again.
Mm-hmm.
Why would we say that those are nothing when he came in and saved us out of those captivities?
Right.
Why would we not give him credit for that?
Right. And then when you deal with the Feast of Dedication, again, you know, you're following the path of your forefathers, right? And so King Solomon, having that temple built for the Most High, it was dedicated and then it was celebrated, right? Feasting 7 days. And then what happens through process of time, we have the Babylonians who destroyed it, and then the Edomites burn it down and then have to rebuild it. And when you rebuild it, what do? You're going to celebrate that thing, right? And then through process of time, you have the Greeks that come in, you know, that the first abomination that make it desolate. And you went out again. Salakia, can I be heard? Can I be heard?
Con, you good.
Yeah, going in and out. And then, you know, they sacrificing swine's flesh on the temple. So when you fight back, and listen, the only reason they were able to fight back and regain control of the temple is what? Through the spirit and power of the Most High. So the Most High was with them, because if he wasn't, then it wouldn't have happened, right? But because it happened, then you do what? When the Most High does something great for you, especially on that type of a level, you're going to celebrate that thing. And you better give all praise, honor, and glory unto him for that. You know, you working, you got to, you know, the Most High gives you an increase in your income, man, you better give praise unto the Most High for that. You know? And so that's what happens, man. They rededicate the temple. They cleanse it. And they continue to fight. And because of that, we continue to have a leg to stand on as a nation. And so, you know, again, it's not, you know, we're not saying it's Leviticus 23. It's not that, but it, you know, it's a memorial. Right? And so with that, you know, I'm going to say Shalom. Happy Sabbath. Most High willing, we'll speak to brothers and sisters again next Shabbat. Remember, if you have questions, the email address is ticking across the screen, AOCHouston@gmail.com. All are free to send their questions in. Just don't expect, you know, a long, drawn-out debate. Like, because that's not what's going to happen. But definitely feel free to send your questions in. Yeah, brother, you're right. Hellenized is, let me get the definition of it real quick, man.
Hey, brother, the email is scrolling across the bottom of the screen. AOCHouston@gmail.com. If you see it.
Brother, it's been ticking across the screen all day.
It's right there.
So let's roll with this, right? Hellenist. Y'all can see it. Like I put this definition out there before, is Jews who made Greek their tongue, and with it often adopted Greek ideas and practices. So yeah, the Maccabees had a disdain for our brothers and sisters that were Hellenized. We get it. But through process of time, those are the brothers and sisters that repentance was given unto through Yahushua. And you have the same thing nowadays with our brothers and sisters on college campuses that hold fast to Hellenism. They call themselves Greeks. And they're even governed by what they call is a Pan-Hellenic Council. That's what they call it. Black fraternities and sororities, National Pan-Hellenic Council. That's their governing body for all of them. So Hellenism is alive and well. Even when you deal with sports, the sports world is fully Hellenized, because, you know, that's where those things come from. And so, you know, again, Shalom. If you got the questions, send them in, and Most High willing, we'll deal with them. And I don't know when, but soon, the phone lines will be open after the Q&A as well, to call in and ask questions. So, you know, again, Most High willing, we'll speak to brothers and sisters soon. Shalom.
Shalom.